Good morning, everyone. It's morning here in Nova Scotia, Canada. Anyway, it may be afternoon where you are. Now, today, I'd like to talk about doing business in different cultures. Uh, and these are only my opinions. I've spent quite a bit of time in Colombia, some time in Ecuador, and some time in Europe, but most of my really international experience has been more focused in Colombia. And I was in business here in Canada for over 30 years. My name's Burton Langell, as you probably know. And I would very much like to get your opinions today. So please introduce yourself, interact. And first of all, can you please let me know if you can see and hear me? That's important if you want to hear what I'm saying. So anyway, let's move along and just I have to divert my eyes at times just to remember what's on these slides. And tell me about your business experience. Have you done business with North Americans in Canada and the U.S.? I know Mexico and Guatemala and El Salvador and these countries are also in North America. So I'm not ignorant of geography. But I'm thinking more of the kind of English business environment in Canada and the US. Quebec in Canada is a little different too, because it's kind of more of a European idea. And Quebec is part of Canada, but also very much its own nation in some ways. So let's talk. So first of all, please introduce yourself in the comments. And do please let me know if you can hear me. I do really need your reflections on this. Now, the first thing, if you look at the map, North America and South America are connected. It's funny how Europe and Asia are two different continents. North America and South America are connected. We say they're two different continents. Where do we get these things? But what's really odd is there is no rail or road connection really between North America and South America. Wouldn't it be great if we could go all the way from Alaska all the way to Patagonia? Wouldn't that be a fantastic trip? But I guess we can, but we have to take a ferry from Panama to Colombia. So that's kind of a different thing to have to do. Now, what is reality today? We live in a virtual world. Ideas float around, ideas change, seems to be almost daily. What we're all going through, things are not so localized. Reality is what we see. It's our perception. It's peer to peer, and it's through the media, and the narrative is kind of what we follow. There's not a lot of accuracy there sometimes. Let me know. Add your comments to this, will you please? Is this true? Is it less true, do you think, in South America, Latin America, than it is perhaps in Canada and the US? That maybe people in Latin America are not so involved in all the social media and all the news and everything? Let me know. And first of all, is anybody here? Or am I just talking to myself? So let me know about that also. Now, these are my observations. As I said before, I have some experience, but I definitely can be very, very wrong. And everybody is different. I don't want to stereotype. I'm just kind of talking generalities here. And this doesn't hold for everybody. And I think there's a big difference between kind of the younger generations in business and IT and that, and older generations, especially the IT industry, which is, I think, very forward thinking, very innovative, and dress codes and everything are probably quite different than maybe dress codes in business in Latin America. And even here, if you work for a law firm or a bank, dress codes are often different than in regular business. And we'll talk about language and that. And this is what I do. I'm a business English communications coach. I talk about language all the time. And language is more than just words, of course. It's body language, it's tone, it's the context of where we are, it's the context of the business we do, isn't it? So, government, environment. And this is one thing that's odd. I think Canada is the only constitutional monarchy in the Americas. Isn't that funny that we never got rid of the queens and the kings? What do you think of this? Does this make Canadians different? Or here in Canada, we see it as mostly ceremonial, and every so often there'll be an article, well, why do we have the monarchy? Well, it's easier to continue than to give it up, because what would we do? We'd have to have a president. We'd have to change our whole parliamentary system to a republic. So it would just make it so complex. It cost us a bunch of money. It wouldn't. What would be the difference, really? Now, let me know if you can see what's here. I can change it so that it's mostly the slide instead of looking at my funny looking face. But it is easy to set up a business in Canada. I can go on my computer and set up a private company, register it with the either the federal government in Canada or provincial government here, and I can have it pretty much done in a day or two. Just check the name, make sure it's open, and then just incorporate it. And I get the articles of incorporation and everything. Now, when we set up a company in Latin America, in Colombia, it was a real process. It was very frustrating for us. We didn't understand it. The legalities were much different. The approval process from the government was very different. And the Chamber of Commerce in Colombia had a lot to do with setting up businesses. And a business in Colombia, you need a certified accountant at a certain size. You need a lawyer around your office a lot. When you're hiring people, the lawyer's there doing contracts with people. It was a lot more complex than doing business here in Canada or the US. Canada and US are pretty simple. I think the US is quite a bit more complex than Canada too. Canada is really easy to do business online. And you'll find governments here are pretty helpful to business. Now, business finance. There's a lot of funding sources here in Canada and the US for business. Government wants to help business, especially innovative business, especially IT business. We have programs like you get tax credits and everything for investing in small business. Basically, when we set up our mining company in Mexico years ago, a public company, investors could invest $10,000, and their exposure to loss after tax credits and everything was only probably a couple $1,000s. And that we were very fortunate that $10,000, which was 20,000 shares, eventually turned into $400,000 if people kept it to the highest price. And yeah, so they had very little risk. For their risk was 2,000 and it turned into 400,000. So we have programs like that here. It was really easy to get the certificate for that program. Didn't take any time at all. Things move very fast up here business wise, and it's easy to do your taxes and everything here. Yeah, so now I believe in Latin America, funding sources are much more limited. Capital is not that easy to come by. And it's probably an opportunity for foreign capital to move into countries. But countries like Brazil and Argentina and different countries in Latin America have a lot of restrictions. And when we were sending money to Colombia, the president of the company in Colombia would have to go to the bank and sign for it and do complete forms and everything. It was really complex. And we would send money to different other jurisdictions, and it was really pretty easy to wire money. But Latin America a lot of countries seem to have a lot of restrictions in doing business. And I will get to the language and the culture of business, but I'm just laying out some things before I get there. So how do we do business? In Canada and the US, titles in business don't mean a lot. You have to prove authority's not that big a deal here. Especially with the millennials. When I was a young business person, when I was young, yes, we had the bosses and we looked up to them and we didn't contradict them and we didn't add our opinions very easily. But today, it doesn't mean a thing. The millennial gets hired and they expect to be making business decisions pretty much from day one in the companies and that. And companies are pretty open to this. I think it's a good idea. We need to understand the marketplace and that and accept their ideas. Latin America seems to be more formal. And if you're doing business here in Canada or the US, we're going to be operating generally on first names. The CEO of the company is probably going to introduce himself as John or Mary or whoever. It's first names right, day one. It's not going to be Senor so-and-so. In Canada and the US, and especially in the US, they're more blunt than Canadians even. And now the US and Canada are big countries. And it tends to be more regional. People in Western Canada are more like the people in Western United States. And you'll notice people make decisions fairly quickly. They're business is more focused on facts and numbers and that sort of thing. And we'll let you know pretty quickly if we're interested or not interested. Try to be polite, but you won't be so surprised. And we just want to know, well, what's the benefit for my company? What does it do? Whereas in Latin America, I found it very frustrating as a Canadian business person not to be able to get definitive answers very often now. And now a lot of my contacts on LinkedIn are pretty good for letting me know if they're not interested in the programs I'm offering or that, which is good. It lets me direct my efforts to the people who need it. But my friends in Colombia, if we talked about going to a football game or something, well, I suppose perhaps I'll see. Um, I'd like a definite answer. Yes. Do we meet there at 6 p.m.? I'll meet you before. We'll have something to eat, or we'll have a beer. Uh, it it was like pulling teeth, as we would say in English. So try to be more definite when you're dealing with the North American and Canadian business people. Bring it to the point. Uh, so if you're selling something, show your competence, build the commonality, work through, find the problem, ask the questions, get agreement through the finding the problems and that, recommend your solution, get agreement on the solution, figure it out, and you'll know pretty soon if they feel they have the problem, if they trust you, and if they feel the solution will do the job. So, and hi, Denise. Thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. Yeah, high bureaucracy. And we had a bit of that when we were more associated with the British system here in Canada. The British are much, much more bureaucratic than here in North America. And I think that some countries in South America, they're working on this, but yeah, it would help your business community a lot to get away from bureaucracy. I can't speak English. What do I do? It's my first tongue. Yeah, and my Latin American friends are so good. They were so good to me, and I used to spend a considerable amount of time in Colombia. The people were so friendly to the foreigners. And my friends in Chile and in Brazil, they're very inviting. They're always there to help and everything. They're very warm, and people are warm here, but it's different. We don't spend a lot of time talking about family and friends and how we feel and this sort of thing. So, and it's like Cretel, or, and I know I say it wrong, or como estás in Colombia, and you hear a lot. Whereas here in North America, how are you doing? What's happening? We don't expect much of an answer. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Okay, I'm okay. Let's get on with it. We don't say let's get on with it, but it wouldn't be too long before somebody's saying, well, okay, great. Let's get down to business. Let's have a look at this. Executives, you'll find, fear wasting time. North American executives want to get things done. And if you look at their schedules, it's very, very booked up. They don't have a moment to fruit. So they want to get things done, and we're very punctual. And as I said before, we are pretty informal now in business. It's getting more and more informal. And anybody else have comments? I'd love to hear your comments. Let me know what you're thinking. Denise, do you have some more ideas on these things? Talk to me about your dress code. What do you do? Would you say the dress code, I don't know if you're in IT or not. A lot of my clients are IT professionals or business professionals. How formal is it where you are? Yeah, business meetings are more directed here. We try to keep to a strict agenda. People, we try to be polite in that, but we are trying to be effective and efficient. Uh, and I would get a little frustrated in Latin America that the meetings didn't move on along as fast as I'd like to see them. It would take 2 or 3 meetings to get anywhere. North Americans find this very, very hard. And maybe we're just too fixated on time. It's, yeah, just as I said, fixated on time and efficiency. People in Canada, many Canadians speak French. Most of the French speakers in Canada probably speak English also. In the US, there are some Spanish speakers, but they try to assimilate, whereas Canada is a multicultural country. If you live in Toronto and you go to your office, you'll probably find that the people sitting around the table are 50-60% of the people are not from Canada originally. So you'll see all kinds of different people here. And it's the same in the States, but there's more of an assimilation process there. Whereas I guess in South America, it's not as multilingual, but multicultural. But don't expect a lot of North Americans to speak your language. It's too bad. And I tried to speak Spanish when I was in Colombia. I wasn't very good. I have to get better. Now, this was a strange thing I noticed right away was people were taking notes all the time when I was in Colombia, which is a good thing. I used to insure engineering architectural firms for professional liability, and note taking was very important during meetings and follow up and that. So, yeah, some note taking is good. Just try to stay in the meeting and not in the book. Pricing strategies. Yeah, capital is hard to come by in South America. Pricing is, people have an idea what it is, and people like to bargain, I believe. Whereas in North America, a lot of companies try to do value pricing, and this is very common in the IT industry. Well, what will my application do for your company? What's the value you're going to derive from it? And IT companies are often not so concerned about the cost of the application and the labor costs and all that sort of thing. They want to see, on a good digital product, you may have an 80% profit margin because of the value it delivers, which is very different than traditional business, of course. And in South America, I think the pricing model is kind of different, whereas we've been more focused on value. I hope this isn't boring. One of my students, a couple weeks ago, he's from Brazil. He's a business entrepreneur from Brazil. He's living in Toronto, returning back to Brazil for business and that quite often. He works with Canadian business people also. And he told me that it wasn't language in that was so much the problem. It was just the cultural differences between Brazil and Canada that just made it so awkward doing business here, and just feeling very different. And it was the business culture that was probably the biggest stumbling block. Anyway, I was interested in hearing this story. And the more I think about it, the more important I realize that cultural is really, really important if we want to be successful in business. So advice to Latin Americans: pay attention to time. Keep the introduction short. Don't be too formal. Try to be more direct. always think return on investment in pricing, and don't be too sensitive. It's just business. This and North Americans, we need to understand you also. And South America is a big opportunity. South and North America, there's wonderful opportunities in working together. Uh, the economies in South America, I think, are really going to outperform the North American economy. So over the next several years, just your labor market, the universities are educating a lot of good people. I think that there's a great future for Latin America, and we just need to learn to work together better. Uh, Let me know if you'd like my latest ebook. I think it's very practical. It will give you all the English you need for doing meetings, negotiation, uh, building relationships, doing an interview with a North American company, and much more. So just let me know. And yeah, and I have several courses. I have a small talk course that I actually, at this time, I'm giving away for free. So in the near future, I'm just going to put a little price on it just to cover some advertising costs and that. And I have a very comprehensive course on doing meetings in English. I'd be happy to give that to you. Yeah, Denise, I've noticed that too, that most of my IT students in Latin America do dress pretty informally, and people work with the IT industry. But I noticed that um, other people, and we had a fairly big call center in Bogota, and a lot of people would come to work with a sports jacket on or wearing a tie and that, which would be, you'd never see it here in Canada in a contact center. Yeah. Anyway, let me know if you'd like this ebook. Anybody, just DM me, whatever, and I'll get it to you. And I hope everybody has a great day. And tomorrow is TGIF. TGIF, as we say. Does anybody know what TGIF is? TGIF. Thank goodness it's Friday. And I actually see my clients on the weekend. I was in business for 30 some years, but now my passion is helping people in their careers with business English, helping them to be more successful, helping them to work for North American, European companies using English. And that's just my passion. And most of my clients are IT and professional business people. Generally at the intermediate level in English, I have a very directed business course that will make your business English advance so that you can succeed in your careers using business. Let me know any way I can help you. And I offer a free 30-minute introduction where we assess your English and help you develop a plan to improve your English. And we'll talk about your goals and your challenges in English. And I'm not much of a sales guy. So it's very, very low key. And if you want to use me as a helper, that's fine. If I can help you by just sending you stuff that's got little or no cost to you, investment to you, that's fine. So I'm happy, and I do take on. Generally, I only have about 15 clients at a time. So, and I think right now I'm just about there, but I'm always interested in talking. So let me know if you'd like to have a chat someday. And thank you for attending. And I hope you will make some comments, and I'll try to get right back to you. So have a wonderful day. And thank you for listening to this kind of boring talk. See you. Thank you.